$93 billion. According to the latest request of the African countries, we will provide another $90 million for their development. To finish my statement, dear friends, let me underline once again that we are sincerely ready to stand side by side with our African friends to work for the future, to create a genuine strategic partnership and interaction. We appreciate our relations with each African country and with the continent in general, and we are sure of the successful future of these relations in the current multipolar world which is in development. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Allow me to give the floor to Chairperson of the African Union, President of the Union of the Comoros, Azali Assoumani. You have the floor, Your Excellency.
Dear friends, morning. Мы начинаем нашу работу, точнее продолжаем нашу работу и открываем первое пленарное заседание саммита Россия-Африка. Уважаемый господин Асумани, уважаемые главы государств, правительств, руководители делегаций, уважаемые друзья и коллеги. Рад приветствовать вас на пленарном заседании второго саммита Россия-Африка. Здесь собрались представители подавляющего большинства африканских государств и руководители ведущих региональных организаций. И это убедительно свидетельствует о взаимном стремлении наших стран и народов развивать сотрудничество по всем направлениям, укреплять честное, открытое и конструктивное партнерство. Триса Лулумбы, Гамаля Абдель-Насера, Нельсона Манделы, Ахмеда бен Беллы, Омара Аль-Мухтара, Кваме Нкрумы, Саморы Машела, Леопольда Сенгора, Кеннета Каунды, Джулиуса Ньерера. Мы помним и других африканских борцов за свободу, и национальных лидеров африканских стран. Основываясь на принципах справедливости и равенства, они твердо отстаивали для своих народов независимый путь развития, зачастую ценой собственной жизни. Эти идеалы свободы, независимости, суверенитета
Past, albeit with the resistance of those who got used to the idea of their own exceptionalism and monopoly in global affairs, it is no accident that the second Russia-Africa summit goes under the slogan for peace, security and development. We're focusing not only on the expansion of the Russian-African strategic partnership, but also such cornerstone topics as global and regional stability, sustainable development of the continent, enhancing sovereignty of the African states in all the dimensions. Russia and the African states stand together to construct a new, more fair and just architecture of the world order. Together, we defend international law, the UN Charter, and the central role of this global organization. We are trying to coordinate our approaches on the key issues of the international agenda. It is important to note that we have shared or similar positions on many of them. This is manifested by the main positions of the political declaration, which is drafted to be adopted by the summit. Russia and African countries are expanding cooperation in countering the spread of the terrorist threat, to react to the challenges in the area of information security. Together, We stand against the use and abuse of the topic of climate, human rights and so-called gender agenda for the self-centered political interests. We do not accept such illegal practices as unilateral sanctions and restrictive or even punitive measures that damage the countries who pursue an independent policy, which create economic problems in the global scale and hold back our development. And we cannot accept the replacement of the international law with the so-called rules-based world order that certain countries declare themselves and interpret and distort and change themselves. It is not entirely clear what these rules are and who created them. It is clear that certain countries are using them in their own interest and change them for their own benefit. Most importantly, Russia and Africa share our inherent aspiration to defend true sovereignty and the right for our own path of development in the political, economic, social, cultural, and other areas. Such aspiration to independence and sovereignty does not equal self-isolation. Quite the contrary, it means openness and cooperation of the free states and peoples, states as equals in their rights. Sovereignty is not something you achieve, it is something you have to keep fighting for to maintain. That is why I would like to remind you the words of Nelson Mandela, who said, "Do not judge me by my successes. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again." The same goes for state sovereignty. We need to defend it. We shall not step back or cave in under external pressure. In this aspiration to stay independent, to defend the sovereignty and take part in the establishment of the multipolar system based on states' equality, Russia and Africa show full solidarity with each other. And Africa show full solidarity with each other. Let me note that we witness the African continent becoming a new center of power. Its political and economic role is on the rise exponentially. And everyone shall take this reality into account. Let us take the example of the initiative of several African states for the settlement of the Ukrainian crisis. This is an acute issue, and we continue considering it. And this means a lot. Previously, any intermediary missions had been essentially monopolized by the countries with so-called developed democracies. But now it's different. Now Africa stands ready to help us find solutions for the issues outside of the zone of its original interests, and we respect your initiatives and take them into consideration. The authority of the African regional structures is also on the rise. First of all, the African Union as the expressor of opinions and aspirations of the entire macro region. Russia has actively supported the initiative to provide African Union with membership in the G20. This would be the right solution, which would reflect the reality and the balance of power in the modern world. We are open to cooperation with other regional integration groups of Africa. Yesterday, we had a special meeting with their leadership. We had launched an initiative to establish cooperation between the Eurasian Economic Union and the African Continental Free Trade Area, established within the African Union, to discuss the possibility of integrational synergy between these organizations. And we also share the aspiration of African states to take a more active part in the activities of the United Nations. We see the active position taken by the African Union in this regard. We stand ready for practical consideration of any proposals to expand the representation of Africans in the bodies of the United Nations, including in the context of the proposed reform of the UN Security Council. We believe it is time to mend the historic injustice towards the African continent. distinguished colleagues, we have to admit the fact that the situation in numerous African regions remains unstable. We still see unsettled international and ethnic conflicts, acute political, social and economic crisis. This is the grave heritage of the colonial era, of the policy to divide and conquer
All the brothers
of
there
the Western metropolis in Africa.
from Africa.
Terrorism, the
All
spread of
the
extremist
brothers
ideology, transnational crime and
from
piracy
Africa.
all hinder the continental development.
What don't you see? No American flags. Let's go, y'all. That's why Joe Slow Biden mad at Africa. Because Africa ain't trying to join their foolishness. And they standing on their square with Russia. It's going to be Africa that bring that war to peace.
Counter these threats, Russia also offers its assistance. We stand ready in active cooperation between the law enforcement bodies and the special services of the Russian Federation and the African countries. We also intend to continue professional training for servicemen and law enforcers of African countries in the Russian specialized academies and universities. Currently, the servicemen from numerous African states are studying in the universities of the Russian Defense Ministry. In order to enhance the defense capacity of the continent's countries, we enhance our partnership in the military and military technical areas. Russia has signed agreements on military and technical cooperations with over 40 African countries, which now receive a wide array of Russian weaponry and military equipment. Some of them is provided free of charge in order to enhance security and sovereignty of these states. Our African colleagues take active part in the military and technical forums and exercises organized by Russia, where they can see the advanced types of weaponry and military equipment in practical use. The attention of Russia to Africa is on the rise. This can be seen in our plans to expand the diplomatic presence on the continent. We are ready to restore and open new Russian foreign missions and increase the number of employees in a number of existing embassies in Africa. This is an actionable step to intensify our contacts with the African countries, the political, business contacts, as well as cooperation in the humanitarian area, the area of culture and tourism. As an example, let me mention that following many years of suspension, we are about to restore the functioning of the Russian embassies in Burkina Faso and Equatorial Guinea. We also intend to expand the network of Russian science and culture centers, also known as Russian houses. They are currently active in 8 African countries, and they are about to appear in a number of new African states. We would welcome similar steps by our African friends, and we will provide all the necessary support in the opening of new embassies, consulates, and other missions of African countries in Russia. Dear friends, I would like to say a few words of the economic and humanitarian cooperation with Africa. Yesterday's forum shows that both Russia and the African countries are actually eager to enhance cooperation in these areas. And let me be frank, our business has something to offer our distinguished partners from Africa. Despite the turbulence on the global market, the volume of trade with Africa is on the rise. It is clear that we are not at our full capacity today. In absolute figures, the current volume of trade is not what we should be satisfied with. We can do much more. So far, the volume is quite modest. The growth of the Russian-African trade and the diversification would be promoted by the use of national currencies in the trade and the establishment of new transportation and logistics chains. We understand the importance of unhindered supply of food products for the social and economic development and the support of political stability of the African states. Therefore, we expand and extend the shipments of agricultural products to Africa. In the year 2022, We have sent 11.5 million tons of grains to African countries, and in the first 6 months of this year, we have sent another almost 10 million tons. Despite the illegal sanctions against our exports, which seriously hinder the shipments of Russian food products and complicate the transportation, logistics, insurance, and bank transactions. Let me underline that you, my dear friends, can rest assured that Russia shall always remain a responsible international supplier of agricultural products. We shall continue supporting the countries and regions in need. We will provide our grains and other food products, including shipments free of charge, shipments within the United Nations World Food Programme. Yesterday, as you know, we announced that in the upcoming 3 to 4 months we will provide additional 25 to 50,000 tons of grains to 6 African countries, free of charge. Overall, Russia intends to continue providing assistance for the development of the African continent by providing more than humanitarian assistance, but also trade preferences, supporting the creation of modern industries, agriculture,